Today I'll teach you how to paint fire, but painting a torch would have been too boring, so instead I'll be working on this elemental. Step 1 will be to establish a solid orange base coat to work from. A light undertone will help me achieve this in 2 thin coats. If your model already has a black base coat, apply a single coat of medium grey over the fire bits first, and you should get a solid orange in 2 or 3 coats. In order to get into every nook and cranny, a pinch of water was used to dilute the orange a bit. I'll move on to painting the inner, lighter parts first, which will represent the hottest part of the fire. For it, I'll make use of a very easy technique which I've come to call the water trick. In essence, it'll just be a wash of diluted acrylic. However, a layer of water will be applied over the surface beforehand. This will help us avoid the acrylic drying in such a manner where coffee stains are created. It will take longer to dry due to the high amount of water, but that'll just help the acrylic dry smoothly. Such a high amount of water will also tune down the value of the acrylics, so a second coat will be necessary to make the color pop. Since I'm working on such a big model, I decided, as you have seen, to begin with a mix of yellow and orange. On a smaller torch bit you could skip this and jump straight ahead to yellow. However, in my case I'm looking to get a smooth transition from orange to yellow. If you've watched my content before, you've probably seen me use this technique many times. Normally I'd be a bit more precise when applying the diluted paint. However, due to the size of the model and the shape of the details, at least for now I am safe to apply the paint all over, and let the wet surface guide it to the recesses. After the model is fully covered, it will be left to dry on its own, no speeding things up with a hairdryer, or those coffee stains will begin to appear again. Now I'll begin to add the yellow. This is mixed 1:1 with water to begin with. The surface will be covered with water in its entirety once again. However, the paint will be applied selectively on the innermost parts. Just a single touch of the brush will let the paint flow freely, and that will be all. Once it dries, I'll have a look around to see if a second application is required to achieve full opacity and wear. This is how I initially proposed the technique to be used. An easy way to sort of paint wash without having to recur to other mediums such as oil paints. The initial coating of water does 2 things. On one hand, provides the surface tension for the wash to run on its own throughout the crevices. On the other, it allows any paint which gets into the raised details to mostly flow towards the recesses. While I'm using an old brush for this, using one with a nice point would have allowed me to be more precise with the application, and saved me from having to do a couple of corrections. Still, that just gives me the opportunity to show you how to correct any mistakes in the next step. Here is how the model ended up looking after the first coat. It was then left to fully dry on its own and a second coat was applied, which provided me with full color opacity and very well defined details. While the yellow looks quite striking as it is, we still had to incorporate red to the fire, which will up the contrast a bit more, but there are a couple of things to do before that. I had a look around and found a couple of spots where a bit of coffee staining occurred, or where I accidentally touched a raised detail with yellow. This will get all fixed with a glaze of orange. The dilution as before is 1:1 with water so as to avoid harsh transitions. This probably won't apply to a classic torch because of its size, but just in case I wanted you to have a look at this step. Unless done carefully, like I've shown in a couple of tutorials covering pin washing on Space Marines, a couple of touch-ups here and there will be required when using this technique. To have a better look of what we've done so far, I've painted all the metallic details in black. This will also help the metallic paint end up with a better finish. Before working on the red, I'll give the metallic parts their appropriate coating, and leave them to cure and set. While metallics will dry like any other acrylic paint if not left enough time to set, when I move on to apply washes in the next step, the metallic flakes will lift up and might end up running into undesired places. The first wash will be a simple coat of black to get some definition in the recesses. Feel free to use proper washes, but like I've mentioned in my previous video, I've moved on to just using diluted acrylics. For our next step, there is no easy trick. Red paint is diluted 1:1 with water, and after removing the excess, I'll glaze it over the end of the flames, making sure to end my brushstrokes towards the tip of it so as to have more paint deposit there. This might look like a lot of work, but in truth, you'll probably have to do this 2 or 3 times when working on a torch. Those tiny fires in the shoulders are a better representation of what we most commonly encounter when painting fire effects. This will be applied also on some metallic parts to better integrate them to the model, as well as to represent the heat they are under. I didn't end up showing it, but I also applied some orange in the same manner, even closer to the source of the fire. You'll have a better look in the final reveal, but it was nothing more than an extra wash over the red. Finally, after adding some black to the red, a pinch of blackish color will be applied over some but not all of the end of the flames. The less the better. This will work as smoke beginning to form on the very tip, as well as to enhance the contrast between the inner brightest part of the fire and the rest. Like before, make sure to end the brushstrokes towards the tip of the flame to have more paint deposit there. Thank you for having reached this point in the video. I hope not only that the tutorial was useful, but also entertaining enough. Like always, a special thanks to my patrons Alexis C and Caleb, and to everyone else who has joined the Patreon for free. Feel free to leave any questions you have in the comments. But that'll be it for this week's video, so I'll see you next time.